Hello, back again on the Top Recap channel. This time I will tell a movie's entitled Universal Soldier, Day of Reckoning. Let's get straight into the storyline. The story begins by showing a man who is a former Special Forces officer who is now living peacefully with his wife and son. The man's name is John. One night, John woke up because he heard his son calling.
I'm up. Okay, I'm gonna check it out. No monsters in the bedroom, sweetie.
Daddy, look in the kitchen.
Okay, I'm going to the kitchen now.
When he checked the house, in the kitchen, he saw 3 masked men. One of the men beat John to death. There, John saw his wife and son being held hostage and sadistically murdered right in front of his eyes. John, who had begged for mercy many times, was ignored by the men. Sometime later, according to the doctor, John had been in a coma for 9 months since the fateful incident that happened to him at that time. John woke up from his coma with question marks on his head. Then, the doctor introduced him to an FBI agent named Gorman. Gorman immediately showed a photo that showed the face and posture of the same person who killed his wife and son. Later, John was told that the man's name was Luke Devereaux. Luke used to be an officer who had been honored. However, he was now classified as a fugitive, and his whereabouts were being sought by the American embassy because Luke had committed various brutal acts of rebellion.
His name is Luke Devereaux. Prints were all over the crime scene.
After telling him that, the doctor asked Agent Gorman not to talk too much to John as he was just recovering from his coma. Before leaving, Gorman gave John a business card so that John could contact him if he remembered anything.
Put the plumber to work.
A few days later, John was allowed to go home. While signing the papers, he was given his belongings by the lobby attendant.
Just sign here and here.
John then returned to his house and saw how it still held many memories with his wife and son. However, several times, the shadows of trauma still haunted him. Meanwhile, elsewhere, at a nightclub, a man who provides plumbing services enters and immediately kills the club's bouncer. The man's name was Magnus. He then enters the rooms in the club and brutally kills everyone there. After that, Magnus met a tough guy named GR13. A fight was inevitable, and GR13 managed to stab something into Magnus, which left him speechless.
We'll serve him! From this moment on, you're no longer a slave to the government.
We'll seek vengeance on your oppressors.
From this moment on, from this moment on.
As it turns out, GR13 is a clone of Luke Devereaux, who is looking for strong prospective soldiers. Because Magnus is a tough guy, GR13 injects a liquid that can brainwash someone. Back to John, he looks still sad and feels deep sorrow. John also still can't remember who his true identity is. Not long after, John receives a call from someone who claims to be his friend, Isaac. Isaac said that he needed John's help.
Is that you? Man, I thought you were... man, you should have called me, man. You need to come over, man, please.
Out of curiosity, John rushed to the address given by Isaac. Once there, John saw many traces of bloodstains that led to a room. Inside the room, he found that Isaac had died horribly. John then took some evidence that could be used as clues. There, he found a photograph, a voice recorder, and an entrance sign to a nightclub called Violet Cabaret. John decided to visit the nightclub to look for clues about his lost memories. On the way, he listened to the voice recorder he had taken. The voice recording turned out to contain information about reports of superhuman experiments made into special forces.
Gestation period from phase 2 of Universal Soldier Program. Skeptical if we could achieve a complete override. As for implants, still a struggle at the moment.
At the club, John meets a woman named Sarah. Apparently, Sarah already knew John's arrival, so she seemed to avoid him.
Harry?
When John went to the toilet, he saw Magnus standing in front of the mirror. John felt that Sarah knew something about him, but suddenly, Magnus thrust something into John's body that made him speechless.
Your mind is not your own.
Moments later, John is forcibly evicted by club security.
Stay the fuck out!
He then decides to kidnap Sarah at her home. Arriving at Sarah's house, John immediately held her and forced Sarah to tell him what she knew about him. However, when Sarah had not finished speaking, Magnus suddenly appeared at Sarah's house and immediately attacked John. In the fight, 2 fingers of John's hand were cut off by Magnus's axe. However, John managed to turn the situation around and cut Magnus's fingers in return. Finally, John also got the opportunity to escape with Sarah. Sometime later, Magnus was seen in a place that turned out to be Luke Devereaux's headquarters. At the base, many military troops shouted at GR-13, who was provoking them. There, GR-13 made a speech about what freedom really means.
Deeper into the outside world, unnoticed we live among them like ghosts. Forced to kneel before us and pay for their sin. The day of reckoning!
On the other hand, at a motel, Sarah finally agreed to tell what she knew about John. She said that John was a delivery driver who used to frequent the nightclub where Sarah worked. As it turns out, the 2 of them were once in a relationship, but unfortunately, the relationship had to run aground because Sarah was afraid to see John's very brutal behavior when he beat someone up.
You came by the club, sat in the corner and watched me. Same as always. Your name, but you wouldn't stop. You were just pounding the sky.
Hearing all this made John very confused because everything Sarah said was not in John's memory. Shortly after that, his traumatic image reappeared. When John regained consciousness, he decided to contact Agent Gorman, who had given him his business card when he was in the hospital. Not long after, Agent Gorman came to John and gave him information about who Luke Devereaux really was. Gorman explained that over the past 3 years, many government agents had been captured by Luke and brainwashed into obeying his every command.
Over the past 3 years, a number of our agents have disappeared, and the prevailing theory is that Devereaux had brainwashed.
Gorman also suggested that John visit his old workplace to find out about his lost memories.
If you go looking for Devereaux, he'll find you first.
The next day, John and Sarah arrived at John's old workplace. When John entered the workplace area, he was immediately met by a warehouse head, who escorted him to where John's belongings were.
You and Mr. Castellano. I just work here.
John then asked about his boss's whereabouts, and the warehouse chief immediately took him to meet his boss, Ron Castellano.
How you been, John?
As it turns out, Ron is one of the mafia who controls the city, and the goods that John has been transporting are not just ordinary goods. When Ron learned that John was suffering from memory loss, he told him that John would be shocked if he knew his old identity. Ron then showed John a CCTV footage. Apparently the footage was from his friend Isaac's room, which John found dead. John was very curious about who the man in the hoodie on the CCTV was, and was surprised to see that the man was himself. Ron then warns that John is currently in trouble, and John immediately leaves him. On the way, John asks Sarah where the address of a cabin he used to live in is. As Sarah tries to explain, their car is suddenly hit by another car driven by Magnus. During the chase, Magnus appears desperate to kill John and Sarah. Suddenly, John remembered how vicious he used to be and ended up brutally killing Magnus. After that, John and Sarah immediately left the place. After feeling far enough away, they stopped at a place to treat their wounds. There, John was confused about why his finger healed itself. He realized that he was not an ordinary human because all his wounds had healed completely. Here, it is revealed that John was one of the government's experiments. A few minutes later, they arrived at a cabin in the middle of the forest. There, they were surprised when they saw John's other self. Apparently, in addition to having strength beyond ordinary humans, John also has a clone that resembles him. All of this finally made sense to John and Sarah because all this time, the person who was with Sarah before was John's clone. John's clone then explains what really happened. As it turns out, John is just a puppet belonging to the government, which was created and given the task of finishing off Luke and his followers, because Luke managed to steal the machine used to clone superpowered humans. John's clone also explained that Luke had put a tracking chip on him, which made it impossible for the government to detect his existence. From then on, John's clone became Luke's subordinate, until he finally realized that Luke was not much different from the government.
I'm different than you. I had a family, a wife. I can remember. I'll help you forget. Go to the river. They'll come for you.
After telling Luke all that, John's clone suddenly acted strangely and strangled Sarah.
John?
He tried to stab Sarah with something, but John shot him.
You're just like me.
After that, John asked Sarah to remove the government tracking chip, which turned out to be on the back of his neck. After doing that, John asked Sarah to go and hide because he knew that Sarah would be in danger if she stayed with him. John then went to the riverbank and was approached by someone who was Luke's follower. John went to Luke as if to surrender, and unexpectedly, Luke's troops were already preparing to welcome him. After arriving inside Luke's headquarters, John met with a doctor. The doctor then explained that all the memories of the murder of his wife and child were artificial in order to motivate John to avenge Luke. The doctor advised John to erase the memories, as the trauma never happened.
Your memories are artificial. You were produced in a government lab where I used to work. Created to kill. Motivated by a memory implant that I developed. I can release you from your pain.
When John was indecisive, he resignedly underwent memory erasure surgery. During the surgery, John is shown glimpses of happy memories with his wife and child. Although he knew it was all a lie, for a moment, John felt happy, so he decided to cancel the memory erasure. After successfully eliminating all of Luke's troops, John must now deal with the all-powerful GR-13. This is where John's true ferocity culminates, showing that he is a special soldier created to kill many people, even with his bare hands. After finishing off GR-13, John finally confronts Luke. As it turns out, Luke has also undergone the same operation as John to gain stronger powers than ordinary humans. Before dying, Luke said that John's struggle was useless because every day the government would continue to produce new Johns. Hearing that, John realized that his clone's words were true, that Luke and the government both wanted to dominate and hurt people under them. After that, John realized that behind him were already 3 of Luke's soldiers who immediately submitted to him. Sometime later, after John completed his mission, he met up with Agent Gorman at a forest crossing. Knowing that John had successfully eliminated Luke, Gorman promised that John would get a new family by making a new memory. Gorman also explained that John's version of himself was the strongest because the false memory they implanted made John's fighting spirit stronger. John, who heard this, felt that he was just a puppet used by the government and immediately killed Gorman.
You killed my family, but you put him up to it.
After that, the new Gorman clone got out of John's car and entered Agent Gorman's car, and the film ended.